Hey, this is Chuck. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to make this brief video regarding the TTM Squeeze and the TTM Wave and how you can get it to look the way you see it on your screen in this video. I'm also going to be talking to you about several other indicators on the chart that have helped me immensely in better understanding the chart, its mechanics, and what I want to do for my next trade. So let me zoom in here and we'll take a look at the top of the chart. This is the charting pattern. You'll notice that at the bottom of the charting pattern are these gray lines. I have gone ahead and inserted the volume onto the chart in this fashion so it doesn't take up the space down here and I get an extra space for an indicator. How do you do that? You got to come up to the little gear icon. You're going to put overlap of volume. You'll see it over here in this section. Once you do that, go over to appearance and then choose your color down here. I've chosen a gray color, which you'll find in the additional colors, this particular gray color here. Once you've done that, click OK, and then your volume bars will appear as gray, so you get to see it, but it doesn't really interfere with the rest of the colors of the background. You can, if you use a white background area, you could make this a different color, a lighter shade, and it won't interfere with these candle formations, which sometimes they blend. As you can see on this day, there was quite a bit of volume and would have interfered with the coloring of the candle bars that you see there. And if you look at the candle bars, you'll notice that the candle bars are blue and red. This is because I have applied the TTM Trend onto the chart. The TTM Trend, what it does, it takes the average range of the last 6 bars, and if the closing price of the current bar is above the midpoint of that range, it will make it a blue candle. If it is below the midpoint of the 6-bar prior range, it will be painted red. And so when it does that, it tells us where the price is trading in relation to the current trend. It also removes the noise of little candles and candles that have long wicks. So it kind of like smooths out the price action for you. Some people prefer the traditional candlesticks. I happen to like this one because it keeps me focused very nicely on what looks like a trend. It trends when it's blue. If it turns red, it's because the prior 6 bars, the range of those 6 bars, the red bar is 50% below that range. And that's an interesting point. It lets you know there's some weakness here. So I like it visually. It tells me what's going on just glancing at these particular bars. And of course, the way to do that is just to go into your charting platform and look for TTM Trend, and it will turn your candlesticks to blue and red. Next thing you'll notice are these arrows, green arrows and red arrows, or pink arrows in this case. This is the TTM Scalper indicator, sometimes known as the TTM Scalper alert. The Scalper alert or the indicator is a visual way to help you determine whether to buy or sell against a pivot level. So these are pivot levels. The indicator points an up or paints an up arrow or a down arrow and representing a pivot high or low. Here this will be a pivot high. These are pivot highs, and these are pivot lows. And so these are always going to be marked by an arrow. It's important to remember that the arrows plot. In other words, they'll show up on your screen only after 3 consecutive higher or lower closes. So you'll have to have 3 consecutive higher highs before it plots, or 3 consecutive lower lows in order for it to plot. And this works on any time frame. And by the way, so does the paint or the TTM Trend. The colors of the candles also works on any time frame. In fact, all of these work on any time frame. The next thing you'll notice on the chart is this blue zigzagging line. This in fact is called the Zig Zag high-low on ThinkorSwim. It should be a similar sounding name on other charting packages. You'll notice how neatly it corresponds to the pivot high and pivot low. They kind of connect them together. This is an independent zigzag line. In other words, you don't have to have the TTM Scalper alert on in order for this particular zigzag to catch the pivot high and pivot low. I like to have it on the screen because it gives me a nice indication of higher highs and higher lows, as you'll see here. So I know that I'm in an uptrend just by looking at the zigzag line. The tolerances for this particular zigzag line, I have it at, let me open that up here. I like to put it at percentage reversal 0.5. That's not what it is by default. I have absolute reversal at 0 and 1.5 ATR reversal, and it really does manage to capture the almost to the tick the different candles that move in and out through the chart. The next thing you'll notice is these three lines, pink, blue, and pink. This is the Keltner Channel indicator. I like to have it on because it shows volatility. One of the volatility components that you'll learn is important in this indicator down here, which is the TTM Squeeze. My use for this particular indicator is that when stock tends to want to come back and revert down to the mean, which is the mean level of the move, which is the blue line that you see running through the two pink lines, which is the channel. You'll notice how, for example, just in this one example, how there was a pivot high here and it came down and came and tested this area right here to the blue mean revision line, and then it kind of bounced up there, came back down underneath the line, but then ran back up to the top of the channel. I like it to see if that area will hold, and where price reverts down to this area. Sometimes this is my take profit. If I'm short over here, I'll take profit, start putting profit targets here, or try to put profit targets down at the lower end of the band. And finally, to wrap up what's on the chart itself, you'll notice this orange, pinkish line. This is the 50-day simple moving average. Nothing fancy. Helps me also to visualize the trend right away. I know that we're looking to the left side of the chart. This particular, the SPY at that moment is in an uptrend. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this was the SPY. But it's in an uptrend. We know that because it's trading above the 50-day moving average. And then once it approaches over here, which is just recently in October, the beginning of October, it starts to challenge the level, and then it closes right at the level, kind of dances around at the level, and then we see a big breakdown October 10th below the level. And at this point, the 50-day moving average is beginning to point downwards, or at least lean downwards. What that means in the future, nobody knows, and really nobody knows anything about what price will be right here on Monday. I'm shooting this on a Saturday afternoon. We don't know what this is going to be tomorrow on Monday morning, but we do know that this particular underlying, which is the SPY, is currently trading under the 50-day simple moving period. So now let's take a look at what the TTM Squeeze, and this is going to be in the lower part of your chart, what this is all about. We're also going to discuss the TTM Wave, and I'm going to give you a little trick on how to get it to look like this, because out of the box, at least on ThinkorSwim, these two are combined together, and so you lose some of this detail because of the blues that you see at this lower one. So I'm going to teach you how to separate those two so it looks like this. So first, let's talk about the TTM Squeeze. The TTM Squeeze indicator by John Carter is a very interesting indicator as far as I'm concerned. I happen to like it quite a bit. And let's take a look and break it down into its component parts. Looking at the center line, which you see here in this area, you'll see that there's a series of green dots. At some point, there will be a red dot. And you'll see maybe that it might not just be one red dot, but as you see here, several red dots. Okay, let me explain to you what the dots are about. The green and red dots along the zero line right here, you see the zero line, indicate if there's going to be a squeeze. Now, what does a squeeze mean? Well, as you know, during times the market will be trending up or be trending down, or be trending sideways, or what's otherwise known as consolidating. And really, consolidation, what that means is that there's a price struggle. There's a struggle about what price should be between the bears and the bulls, the buyers and the sellers. And there seems to, just to give you an example right up here, there seems to be very little big candles, very small candles, and they're all kind of grouped together in this one range right here. And this is a little consolidating period right in this area right here. And so what the market is telling us right now is that the market doesn't know which direction it wants to go with this particular underlying here of the SPY, whether it wants to continue the trend upwards or whether it wants to bring it down. There's some indecision in the market about what price is going to be in this area. And what the TTM Squeeze indicator tells us is once there is a consolidation period, the market wants to release the energy, as John Carter refers to it in another video that I've seen. And the market wants to release this energy of consolidation in one direction or another. And so the first clue about that are these dots. Now, a green dot tells us that there's really no squeeze in place. There's no consolidation of price. Price is either trending, as you see here, in this direction, or it's trending downward, as you see here in this direction right here. Okay? And I'm going to explain to you what these colors mean in a moment. When you get a red dot, it tells us that potentially there is a squeeze condition in effect. And you see the first red dot right here, sandwiched in between these two green dots. After a long string of green dots, there's this one little red dot. And something is telling, this is a little clue that something's going to happen here. There's some consolidation going on in price. And in fact, although these dots are green, it's only probably because of volume and a little bit more vigorous price action, but not that much, because if you'll notice, there are really no significant bars over in this area. Let me just zoom in here so you can take a look. And you'll see there's there's your red dot, and there's very little change in movement. But for some reason, the indicator tells us it's green at this moment. Then we go switch back to red. Now, we see the red dot, and we got to pay attention, because we're going to see how many, what's going to happen next after these red dots. Well, we see another red dot appear on the following day, on October 5th, October 8th, over the weekend. After the weekend, we see another red dot. So we know that the market is still consolidating. There's a price war going on between bears and bulls. Then again, on the 9th, we see it again. And then we see a green dot fire off, and we see a bar heading down. This is our clue, and this is our indication that the market is heading down. And it's going to head down and release that energy down. And in fact, if you take a look, now the dots stay green, and you see that the length of the bar indicates the strength of the move downwards. And at this point, and so we have a red bar. When we get to a yellow bar, the conditions are at this point, hey, watch it. There may be some lessening of sell pressure here. We're not sure yet. We see another yellow bar the following day. We're not sure yet. That we see some of the buyers bringing it back. In fact, that's confirmed by this candlestick right here, where we see the buyers pushing price up. And then the following day, on the 18th, which is just a few short days ago, selling pressure resumes, and we get back to a red bar condition, and a red bar condition this past Friday, yesterday, today I'm filming this on a Saturday afternoon. So where do we go from here? Not sure, but right now there seems to be a strong trend down. The energy was released, or the signal was fired off on the 10th in the down direction, and we saw the move from 286.95, and it closed that day at 278. So quite a significant move in the SPY. Following day was a continuation of that, and then we see a pivot low fire off. So we get this confirmation that there may be some move back, but this one's telling us, hey, it's still going to go down, and the following day it does, with some buying pressure. As you see this candle showing buyers stepping in and trying to push it higher, could not break the open from the prior day. What I like most about the TTM Squeeze is it's very visual. Let me explain to you what some of these colors mean. When the TTM fires off here, it fired off initially here, but let's use this one right here. When it fired off here, it puts you on alert to look for any price moves. You'll notice that the market did go down on that day, and we know that this particular candle is closed 50% lower than the prior 6 candles. That's why it's red. We do see the following day, but there's no move. There's really no indication of momentum as to that downward move. The next following day, again, another red dot. So we got to keep an eye on it. Another red candle, presumption being at this point, although there is no indication of volume or momentum of move here in this area, we still see, again, a move to the downside, now challenging the 50-day moving average. So now we're really, if you're not going to take the trade here, you might want to take it here. We're still keeping an eye on it. The following day, still no momentum indication how strong this move is going to be to the downside. We see this candle here at this area now close below the 50-day moving average, and again, no real body, so there's a big struggle here between buyers and sellers. Move over the following day, this is when we begin to start seeing some momentum to the downside with the red dot. And so now at this point, and we see it close below the 50-day simple moving average. Big battle between buyers and sellers, as you can see. Oops, that's too much. Let me back that out. Excuse me. You see that there is a bit of a struggle here at this area right here. And so the very next day we see, and we see the move downward. So I'm taking the trade. I'm probably going to do either a call credit spread here in the options market. If you're going to short stock, you could do it at this level. Place your stops accordingly. If it's me, I'm doing an options play, probably at this level, at around 290, with a backstop of 2925 or 295 to make it a $5 wide strike, and see what happens. And in fact, the following day, you see what happens. You see a big move, stronger momentum down to the downside. We even see another stronger move down. There is a pivot point that's formed, and the momentum is pretty decent. Momentum continues to go down, although no new low in this area. And then when we get to the yellow bar, it tells us, hey, momentum is waning. It's becoming weaker. Might keep an eye on it. We don't know what's going to happen. We still have an equal length bar. The following day, we have an equal length bar, more or less. Still maybe a little smaller. Still waning. Not that strong of a momentum. Certainly less strong than this particular bar. And we also look up here, and we see that it's rejecting the Keltner Channel, the lower part of the channel. And we see a very, very interesting push up, but the sellers are still pushing down, and they may have closed it right at the open from the prior day. Guess what happens the following day? Continuation to the downside with another momentum bar red, more or less at the same level. So we still see a strong momentum to the downside, even as late as this past Friday, October 19th, 2018. And so looking as well on the up move here in this area, would like to explain to you what the blue shading means. A lighter blue that forms after, and in this case there was no red dot, but we do see a transition over from the low pivot point here. We see that selling pressure is diminishing. We get a crossover the blue line. We now have a crossover into the blue, a light blue bar forming at this candle. We would have missed part of this move right here, but now feeling comfortable that there's some momentum moving to the upside, continues to move all the way up to the to the pivot point, as you see up here. And then we see momentum begin to wane, begin to weaken, still moving up, and forming, there's a retracement here, forming a higher low here at this point. Another pivot point fires off. We're still to the upside, although weak, more weak than before, or weaker than before, better said. We do continue to move to the upside, and then we finally have a little bit of tailing off of pressure. We have another pivot point. This pivot point is just slightly higher than the prior one, I believe. So we're still technically in an up move. 50-day moving average is telling us so. This is another retracement. And then we begin the march up. So light blue means momentum is building. Dark blue means that the momentum is beginning to diminish from the upside. In other words, sellers are coming in and bringing momentum down. The next thing I want to talk to you about is a TTM wave. The TTM wave is a way of visualizing the overall strength and the direction of a given market across multiple time frames. The way that it's comprised of is a short-term wave and a long-term wave. And the short-term wave is generally seen as the yellow and red, as you see here. The blue, light blue, and dark blue wave is the long-term wave. So let's talk about what we see here in this particular short-term wave. The short-term wave, the yellow it indicates a short-term strength move, followed by the red, which tells us that that is beginning to falter, it's beginning to weaken. We see the red now turn on it underneath, and you'll notice that the underneath, the red becomes the strength indicator. So now it's becoming stronger to the downside. The yellow now tells us that it is a weaker, it's weakening. The downside move is weakening till we get to the zero line. Once we're at the zero line, the yellow is now the strength and on the top, and tells us that momentum, that the strength, I'm sorry, not momentum, but the strength and direction is up. Once we see it turn red, now we know that it's going to, or it's weakening and coming back down to the zero line. This is a short-term move within the larger move, and that's down here in this blue section. Well, in the blue section, we have the light blue tells us a strong long-term strength and direction. Well, the direction is up because it's above the zero line, but it's a strong move up. Then we have a little bit of the dark blues, but it continues on up, and the dark blues indicate that, you know, that the strength of the move, the strength of the particular move in that direction, long term, is beginning to fade. But then again, we come back to the light blue. So long as this stays up above the zero line, the long-term trend is up, which is obviously confirmed, as you can see, by the zigzag lines as well as the 50-day moving average. Here we have a transition where the dark blue is now beginning to fade down into below the zero line. So the long-term trend is beginning to fade and transition, and perhaps transition and flip over to the downside. What I like most about the TTM wave is its visual presentation is very, very pleasing to me, at least. It tells me exactly where I am on the short-term trend. Obviously, closer in time to the blank space to your right, which is the future, we know that it is in a pretty decent, strong downward trend, kind of waning a little bit. In other words, we're kind of that strong downward trend is beginning to let up a little bit in the short term, which is obviously reflected in the candlesticks as well. And we also still see some type of evening out here of the long-term trend currently. However, it is going down, so you see some downward pressure. It's just very visual to me. I like it very much. In the next section, I'm going to show you how to set it up so it looks like this, because the way it comes out of the box in ThinkorSwim, it doesn't look anything like this. So I've went ahead and removed all of the indicators. I wanted to show you how it is that you are able to separate the long-term from the short-term wave lengths using the TTM wave indicator. So let's go ahead and go into our studies. We're going to add a study, or actually we could just go ahead and edit a study and find it this way easier. TTM, and that's going to be the TTM wave. Go ahead and add that, and we're going to add it twice. So now you have it here twice. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit this little gear And we're going to go to wave 2 and go ahead and uncheck that box. Wave 2 low and uncheck show plot. Get rid of that. Hit OK. On the next one, we're just going to, on wave 1, show plot. Hit OK. Hit apply and hit OK. And you'll see that it comes up like this. Now, let me show you what it looks like without doing that. We go ahead and edit studies, go to TTM, put the wave in there. Now this is your third lower. Watch what it looks like. You'll see down here that it plots it all together. You see, this is your short-term trend. The blue is your long-term trend. So it really doesn't show. See this? It doesn't show this detail up here. So I don't like it like this. I don't want it together. I can't tell what's going on here. And then you have these little bitty short-term moves that you really can't make out because the overbearing blue, indicating in this case it would be an upward trend, it's covering it. So I like it to be separated like this. So I know what the short-term trend looks like, I know what the long-term trend looks like, and I don't have to try to decipher that or make it out heads or tails from this area right here. So let me go ahead and get rid of that particular study, edit studies, and then let's get rid of the last one. Oops, cancel. Go ahead and get rid of that, and you'll see this. And this is beautiful to me, very visual. I know, obviously, market's going down. We see that confirmation here, market's going down. This little move right here shows that down market move is kind of fading on us. Maybe it's not as strong, obviously not as strong, but we also see this downward trend on the long-term area. On the long-term move, we see that it's coming down. So we're going to keep an eye on the SPY. I think everybody has an eye on the SPY at this point in either event. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I look forward to making more for you. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. This is Chuck. I hope you've enjoyed your time with me.